Hi, my name is Max Flower. I'm here with Tom Russo at the Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting. We're going to ask Tom a couple questions about his investing style and how he got started. But first of all, Tom, you use a really good metaphor, that is being a farmer,
Yes.
as opposed to being a hunter.
Yes.
And would you mind telling us more about being a farmer of investments?
Yes, well, I grew up in Wisconsin. I went to high school there. I went to college at Dartmouth. And what I find in Wall Street generally is the real businesses, the exciting part of the business is getting something done right away. And it's a takeover, it's a recommendation to short sell something, it's short selling something. But people lack the patience to just buy and hold something, shares in a company that you are convinced has both the capacity to reinvest, to grow, and whose managements have the capacity to suffer the burdens placed on their own careers by such reinvestment, because the companies they work for are often family controlled. Now, it's a very different time horizon, it's a very different amount of patience, it's very boring. And it's really a derived from lessons gathered from Berkshire. You know, I've been coming out here for 30 years, and we've had shares of American Express and Coca-Cola. We had shares of full positions in companies that just don't change. And having watched that succeed for so long, I'm reaffirmed that we can attempt to do the same ourselves.
Tell us about one of your companies that has a competitive advantage that still surprises you at how strong it is and how it's likely to stay strong for a number of years.
Well, it's not one you could say is See's Chocolate. We don't own it. Berkshire owns it, but it's extraordinary. You know, they understand that as management, they have to have the ability to suffer through 9 months of the year when they do nothing, because it's a very seasonal business. However, were they to try to fill that space of the C-stores with ice cream in the summer or hot soup in the winter, they would diminish the quality of the franchise. The pledge is that anytime you go in, you can buy expensive chocolate that your loved one to whom you'll give it will appreciate it. And that's a moat, it's a competitive advantage, and it's something that all of their competitors dealt away with because they thought it was more important to make money every quarter, every month, and so they reached for something that actually ended up destroying the core virtue of what they stood for.
And one of the things that See's Candy has done is stick with their quality.
Yes, yeah, of course. And for the mere price of $30 million, in the early 1970s, Warren bought a business that spun off since he owned it, $2.8 billion, which he's used to reinvest to buy other businesses like Geico and other businesses, which in turn themselves spin off cash, which he can redirect internally or through the subsidiaries or himself.
Now, to
outside investments.
When you look at a balance sheet, what's something that sticks out at you as being very important to indicate a strong balance sheet?
Cash is a pretty good thing to start with, and if you have cash, generally it means that the business is cash flow generative, and that's one thing. We look at the inventory level, and I would say on that I'm quite unconventional. We are perfectly comfortable with large amounts of working capital, because the companies that we invest in have very high reinvestment rates, and the places where they reinvest need support from owners of the businesses that supply them with working capital. So if we're developing a brewery network throughout Africa, we really shouldn't shepherd our cash back to share buybacks or high dividends when it's better put helping to source secure supplies from a channel of suppliers who we might pay more than we have to make sure that they're reliable. And then we keep money funding the retailers to make sure that the product's not out of stock. So we'll have working capital levels that most short-term minded investor would say that the business should do without.
Last question for you. Tell us about your interest in art, particularly as it relates to a reflection of society.
Yes, well, that's the most interesting part of art. I mean, it really synthesizes all the forces that are going on at any given time, and then digests it and comes out with a novel way of seeing the world. And we as investors, I had an occasion to speak with an art instructor, a professor at some point, and I honored him by saying what a reputation he had. And he said, well, very very few people ever follow my class and go into art. He said, but I said, that's that doesn't seem to make much of a difference. He said, no, in fact, you're right. He said, because as a professor of art, he taught them two things: one, to observe, and one, to make choices. And I think our job as investors is to observe, find out whether the franchise that we look at has the characters that we hope for, and then make choices as to where to direct capital. And so from that standpoint, we interpret the world in a way that's not that unlike how he said he trained his students to see the world for purposes of delivering art.
That's fascinating.
It's a different goal than trying to buy very expensive art as a result of the large bisons that we slaughter and celebrate. We still stick to farming, and we appreciate the artistic requirement of observation and choice.
I had never thought about the parallel between an artist who's capturing what's happening right now with an eye to the future, and that with an investor. So I haven't articulated this before, but I used to think that art was like the clothing that society wore on the outside, and we could tell what kind of mood society was in. Last question then about art is what music did you listen to in the 60s, and who do you listen to now?
Boy, I'm a real dud when it comes to music. I ask my wife. It's a very humorous question in our family. I'm a total dud. So I wouldn't say that I have any particular melodies beating through my brain. I wish I were, but that's not so.
There's still time.
Yeah.
You've got a brain up there, so
fill it with music, or fill it with the art, or just the art of finding interesting investments that we can hold a long time.
Agreed. Mr. Russo, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank